The very best annual fee cards are the ones that actually pay you to have them. And when we think about this idea of net annual fee, that's kind of bantered around all over YouTube about different cards like the Capital One Venture X that supposedly pays you back $5 through both the travel credit through the portal, and also if you get that 10,000 anniversary miles. And of course, the American Express Platinum that has so many different credits. And if you utilize very many of them, you're supposed to get a positive net annual fee, meaning that these cards pay you to keep them. So what I decided to do is I thought I'd look into all the cards I could find that if you use them correctly, if you use their credits, and in some cases, if you hit the spending bonus that's required on the card, that they give you some benefit, they give you credits, or they give you some perk like a flight credit or a free annual night or whatever it may be. And those cards end up being a net annual fee that they pay you. So I thought I'd look at those different ones and create a tier list of my favorite annual fee credit cards that actually can pay you to keep them. So stay tuned. Okay, the criteria for this tier list that I've made is I look at what the net annual fee you get back, how much you make after you pay the annual fee if you use all of the credits and if you're able to hit the spending thresholds. In other words, if you could optimize the card. Now, with a few of them, I don't look at the full optimization like the American Express Platinum, that Equinox credit. That doesn't apply to but like 1% of people or something like that. So we didn't factor that in. Some of the credits I looked at and I thought, well, it supposedly could be worth this much, but how much would a normal person use it? But basically, in theory, if you could use all of the reasonable credits or hit a reasonable spending bonus, how much do you get back? And I broke it down when we're looking at a tier list from S tier, which is supreme, the very best of the best, all the way down to F tier and every grade in between. I kind of did it based upon how much you get back. So at the F tier, if it's just a break-even card, well, that can be a great card, but it doesn't really fit this criteria. So if a card is just a break-even, I mean a flat $0 is all it costs you, then it's going to make it in the F tier on this tier list. But if a card gets you, I don't know, about $30 or so back after you go to the trouble of using all the credits, I put that one down in the D tier. The C tier is a card that after you pay the fee and use the credits, nets you about $100 or less, down to about that $30 that we talked about in the D tier. That's going to fit into the C tier. The B tier is if you're getting $200 down to just above $100, that's where I put the B tier. The A tier is a tier where if you're getting $200 to $300 in value, I think those cards are exceptional and need to be put in the A tier. And then finally, the S tier. If you're getting above $300 back in your pocket, they're paying you, in essence, $300 after you pay the fee and then you get all the credits and go to all that trouble. To me, that would be an S tier card. And there are a few that fit into that category. Now, I did make some adjustments along the way. And the reason I did that is there's some cards that the net annual fee isn't all that superb. You know, I'm thinking about the Venture X card, but there are other factors that make that a really good card and really a good choice, because even though it only nets about $5 if you use that travel credit through the portal, and if you use the 10,000 miles that you get back on your anniversary, that's only $5. That would fit way down in a low tier. But we really can't put a card like that there because there's other things, free lounge access and you know, the great point multiplier. So I do make some adjustments along the way, and I'll kind of clarify those as we go. The first issue we're going to look at is Barclays. Now, there aren't a lot of cards. In fact, most of us probably didn't even think of them when we think of cards that can pay you back or give you something extra on a net annual fee. But Barclays does have one card that kind of fits into this criteria, and that is the Red Aviator American Airlines card. Now, that card has right about $100 a year annual fee. It's kind of well known because it's one of the only cards that to get the bonus, you don't have to spend, $3, $4, $5,000 in so many months. Just make any purchase and you get the bonus. That's kind of nice. But you're dealing with Barclays, which is everybody I've ever known that talks about it says it's a real headache. So there's pros and cons to it. But one of the perks of the card is once you hit a spending threshold, they give you a free companion certificate for a flight on American Airlines once you spend $100. So you get the rest of that ticket free. And I think you have to pay taxes and fees too. So I tried to figure, well, how much would that be worth? Well, I fly American Airlines quite a bit. So I think an average would be about $400, take off the $100 that you have to pay. So that's about a net $300 into your pocket, which sounds pretty good. The only downside to it is you have to spend $20,000 on the card to get that, and then you get it the next year. So $20,000 is a pretty heavy spend threshold for a companion certificate, which unlike the ones that Delta gives and some of the other airlines, you don't get it absolutely free, just pay for taxes and fees. You got to pay $100 on top of it. So with that in mind, as I tried to rate this card, the $300 value as I figure it and minusing the about $100 that you have to pay in an annual fee, that would be right around the $200 range, which would put it in the B tier. However, you got to spend $20,000 to do it. It's not an entirely free. You got to pay something for that. And it could vary how much of a plane ticket you're going to use it on. So I'm going to put this one, the Barclays Red American Airlines Aviator card, in the B tier. Next, we look at Citibank and their cards. And Citibank, as I looked through all of their different cards, and I have some of their cards, I only really found two that kind of fit this criteria of being a card with an annual fee, but can pay you back something. And I'll just give you a hint, neither one of them rank very high. In fact, you look at them and the only two that really fit the criteria are the American Airlines Platinum card from Citi and the new Citi Strata Premier card, which used to be just the Citi Premier card. Now the AA card has a $95 annual fee, but it gives you a $125 flight credit. But in order to get that flight credit, you got to spend $20,000 on the card. Now, there may be other reasons that you'd want to spend $20,000 on the card. I've had this card, and I am a status flyer with American, and it's a useful card if you're trying to build up. And you're going to find that to be true with every card on this list. Even if I rank a card badly on this list, that doesn't mean I don't think it's a good card. In fact, a lot of my favorite cards aren't on this list because they don't have a net positive annual fee, but some of their other benefits like lounge access or helping you to reach status boosts, they would be considered some of my favorite cards, but they aren't even on this list. And this card, even though I think it's a great card in some situations, and I've used it to great advantage, I'm going to put this card in the F tier for this purpose. If you're looking for a card that actually pays you to keep it, because you got to spend $20,000, you're just getting $125 in a flight credit. That's a lot of spend to get $125. So in the F tier for the American Airlines Platinum card from Citi. Likewise, Citi's Strata Premier card, we have this card. I love this card. I think it's great because it opens up Citi's travel partners with cards like the Custom Cash card. I think a Citi setup is way underrated, and it doesn't get talked about hardly at all because Citi doesn't have good referral bonuses and good affiliate links and stuff, so it just doesn't get a lot of traction. But I think this is an outstanding card, but for the purposes of this tier list, it is far from outstanding. Because you know that what it gives is for a $95 annual fee, you get a hotel credit, which on the surface sounds pretty good, $100 in hotel credit. But here's the caveat. You got to pay $500 through their portal to get back $100 on that. So when I think about that benefit, well, you can get $100. That means you'd have a net annual fee of $5, but you got to spend $500 through a travel credit in order to be able to use it. So to me, I hate it for Citi because I love Citi. They're one of my favorite issuers. Some of my favorite cards are from Citi. But in fact, even some of these cards I think are great cards. But for the purpose of this tier list, how good is a card at giving you back more than you pay? Well, that is pretty bad. So that one also goes in the F tier. Now, the next issuer we move to is Capital One. And Capital One, as far as I can figure, only has one card that fits this criteria. And it is the card. I mean, probably the most well-known, the most beloved card of the last couple of years is the Capital One Venture X. $395 annual fee. Gives you back $300 discount when you book something, flights or hotels, cars, whatever, through their travel portal. And then on your anniversary, they give you 10,000 miles, which is worth at least $100. They'll pay you back $5. In fact, you hear that everywhere for keeping the Capital One Venture X card. And that's kind of realistic math when you think about it. I mean, we never go in the hole on this. We always use that. We love this card. So how do we put this? How do I rank this into this tier list? Well, by our original rankings, by our original kind of the rubric I'm using for this tier list, it would be down in the D tier. But it's just impossible for me to put the Capital One Venture X in the D tier because there are so many kind of soft factors, things about this card that just don't fit into that rubric. So when you think about the Capital One Venture X, I mean, it also gives you great lounge access, including to Capital One's lounges, which are just some of the best domestic lounges there are. It also gives you great travel protections and primary car, insurance when you rent a car. It also gives you that 2 points per dollar everywhere. They have great travel partners. I just can't put it down in that D tier. So I'm going to move it up 2 slots because we don't ever intend, if you're late in the travel card game, don't ever get rid of your Venture X card because you may not ever be able to get it again. They're hard to get approved for if you have a lot of cards and you kind of churn cards and do what we do in this community. So we love this card. We're never getting rid of this card, but I'm going to put it because I just don't think it deserves that low of a score. So we're going to put it up in the B tier, the very good tier, because the Capital One Venture X, there's just no reason not to have it in your wallet. Now we move to Chase credit cards. And I looked through all of Chase's cards and, their Sapphire cards just don't fit the criteria for this video. The Reserve card will give you a pretty good travel credit. It's really easy to use. It gives great lounge access, all sorts of other things. But you still got to find a way to pay for the rest of that big annual fee. That's true of the Preferred card as well. You get that hotel credit. It's pretty easy to use through their travel portal, but you're still paying $45 after that hotel credit. So they just don't fit the criteria of what we're looking at here in this tier list. But they do have at least 4 cards that do. And the first one is the dog of the bunch. And I've had this card. I think I still currently do have this card, although I'll probably downgrade or cancel it when it renews again. But that's the United Explorer card. Now, the United Explorer card is one of those mid-tier $95 travel annual fee cards. It's, not a bad card. If you fly United, it can help with your status a little bit. It gives you free check bags and priority boarding and all of that stuff, like a typical airline card. But when we're looking here at how much does it pay you back, it only has the potential because you do get 2 free lounge visits. And if you figure those are worth $50 a piece, and they're only for United clubs, and it's only when you're flying United, of course, then that would be, you could get back a value of around $100. Well, it costs $95. So you get 2 lounge visits that would maybe be worth an extra $5 to you. So how would we figure that into this equation? Well, to me, the $5 back would, according to our grading system here, the $5 back would put it in the D tier, but I'm actually going to move it down 1 because it's not just a flat $5 you're getting back. You're having to use these lounge certificates, and that's very situational. Are they even going to be taking those one-day passes the day that you go? Sometimes they don't. Is it really, is the food in that lounge going to be worth $50? It may not be. So even though on paper this in theory can give you back a value of $5 over the annual fee, I think this is an F tier card for this purpose. Now there are other purposes, like I said, on every card that can make them good cards. But when it comes to a tier list about how much they pay you back and what that value is, this one's definitely an F tier card. Now we're going to kind of group together 3 cards for Chase Bank now. And that is their hotel cards that give an annual free night certificate. You've got the World of Hyatt card, $95 annual fee. You've got the IHG card with a $99 annual fee. And you've got the Marriott Boundless with a $95 annual fee. Every single one of these cards gives you an annual free night certificate. Now, they have different criteria. I think it's category 1 to 4 for World of Hyatt. I think it's up to 40,000 points value with some of the others. So they're not like for the best room available. These aren't like Hilton certificates. But, generally, I think an average value that you can get, and I've gotten values over $200, but I think an average value you can get with each of these is about a $150 room. So each of these cards gives that annual night certificate. It's really easy to use. And so if you get about a $55 value over your annual fee, that would have fit $55 into our C tier. However, when I looked at each of these cards, I said, yeah, that's a C tier card, but I have all of these cards. I'm never going to cancel these cards because these cards are just very, very valuable in that it's just so easy to get value out of them. I mean, it's a sock drawer card until you need the annual night certificate. As long as you use it every year, you're getting the value, more than you paid. So I'm going to move each of them up. So we're going to group them together. I'm going to move all 3 of these Chase Hotel cards with a free annual night certificate up into the B tier. Now we come to the card issuer that has the most cards on this list, and really some of the best cards on this list, and that is American Express. Like them or hate them, and there are reasons to love them and there are reasons to hate them. I mean, that's the legitimate truth. American Express charges more for their cards for the most part, but American Express gives a lot more potential credits if you can use them. It's such a game with them because with their top cards, I mean, you've got to be on top of it. You got to be self-disciplined, and that makes it tough. And I'm sure that a lot of people don't get the value from it. However, I mean, when it comes to potential value, that really disciplined person who's running a spreadsheet and every month making sure and every quarter and every 6 months making sure they're getting their value, man, they can pay you. They have some great cards. So let's go ahead and start with some of their airline cards. Now, the only airline that American Express partners with for their cards is Delta Airlines. And Delta, I got to say, I canceled my Delta Reserve last year, but then I upgraded back to it. I downgraded from it, and then I upgraded back to it once I realized that the way they changed these cards for a person like me, now not for everybody, some people could lose, but for a person like me, a spreadsheet person who keeps track of it all, I mean, I think they're a real winner. So let's talk about the first one, that one I just mentioned that I have, which is the Delta Reserve card. That is their big boy card. I mean, $650 annual fee, but it gives so many credits. In addition to the other stuff it gives, like, priority boarding and, typical airline card things like free bags and, it allows you to spend towards your status, and it's got a pretty good rate of spend, better than the Platinum does at least, towards status. And then, of course, you get access to Centurion lounges it's a big boy card. But what about this idea of, does it pay me back? How does it rank in regard to what we're looking at in this tier list? Well, first of all, it gives a Delta Stays credit. And I had never used that before, but I used it last month. And it worked smooth. I needed to book a hotel. It was a domestic hotel. It didn't really matter what, we weren't looking for anything aspirational. I booked it through the portal. It was basically the same price as if I booked it somewhere else. And within days, I had that $200 back. That's easy. Super easy to use. $200. And it has a Resi credit. Now, this one I was kind of afraid of because I don't live in a big community. So I got on Resi and thought, well, is there any Resi restaurants around here? Well, yeah, we have one. And neighboring communities have, but it kind of worked out because the one that we have, I go to lunch sometimes there anyway with people from work and things like that. So it's like, and I like that restaurant. So I thought I'm going to go in and try this. So just last week, I went in and I swiped my card, and it was just days later, I got the $20 back on my card. So that was a free $20 just for using my card. I didn't have to sign in online. I didn't have to make a reservation. I just walk in there, use the right card, get the credit back. So that's $240 a year, and I know I'll use it. I think it's, if you live in a place, and that's kind of the question. If you live in a place where there's some Resi restaurants that you want to eat at, then that's just a true $240 back if you go out to eat at all. So that one I think is just could be valued at its full value. Then of course the card gives a ride share credit, and that ride share credit I think is $10 a month. It could be used on Uber or Lyft. Now for me, and I'm that's the only really way I know how to evaluate these things. I will use that sometimes, but when I'm at home, if I'm not traveling, I don't use rideshare. So I'm going to value that at half. So rather than $120 a year, I'm going to value that one at $60 a year. And then there is the incredible benefit, the annual companion flight certificate. Now, unlike the ones we talked about with American, you don't have to pay $100. You just pay whatever the taxes and fees are, up to, I think it's $80, and you get a free companion certificate. And this is good with the Reserve card all the way up through first class travel domestically and to Hawaii and Alaska and to the Caribbean and places like that. And so if you know what Delta flights cost, I value this at really $450, and it's really pretty easy to use. So when you add all of that together, you got about, I'm figuring it's $60 for the ride share, couple $100 for the hotel, $240 for the Resi credit, and then of course the annual flight companion certificate. You add all that up, it gets pretty good. In fact, that adds up to like $950 on a $650 annual fee card, which gives us a total that they're paying me. I mean, if I use all of that, if I value them that way, they're paying me $300 a year to have this card. Now, when you throw in the other perks of the card, like, getting into the American Express Centurion lounges, getting into Delta, and I know they've cut it back to 15 visits a year and all of that, but still, I mean, that's 15 days of travel. I still think that's pretty good. And then you got the Centurion lounges, Escape lounges, you get all of that. It's got a good spend ratio for status. I mean, it's just a strong card, free bags, all of that. I think I've got to put my Delta Reserve card into the S tier. I mean, it gives you back over $300 and a whole lot of other things and tremendous lounge access. The only kind of negative about the lounge access is no guests for Centurion, but you do get 4 passes into the regular Delta Sky Clubs for guests. It's a great card. It's an S tier card in my book. Now we step down to the Delta Reserve's little brother. The little brother of the Delta Reserve is the Delta Platinum card. Now this card has a $350 annual fee, which is kind of steep for kind of a mid-tier card. Now it's the typical, it also gives free bags and it also gives a little bit of priority boarding and all that. No lounge access. So it's kind of that mid-tier for Delta Airlines. You can spend towards status, but frankly, nobody should do that. If you're going to spend on your card and try to get Delta status, get the Reserve, because the Platinum is just, it's twice as bad. I mean, you get one MQD, that's medallion qualifying dollars. That's their metric they use to determine status. You get one for every $10 spent on the Reserve. You get one for every 20 on the Platinum. Just not a good use of it, but it's still possible with that card. Now it gives some of those same credits that in different numbers, but some of the same credits that are offered on the Delta Reserve card. It gives a hotel, a Delta Stays credit of $150, which, when you start thinking about, I'm getting $150, I already said they're really easy to use. It's really quick to get your money back. So that's $150 off of the $350. That's looking pretty good so far. You also get a $120 Resi credit. So rather than $20 a month, you get $10 a month. But again, if that's easy to use, if there's any of those restaurants in your area, I assume it would credit back just as easily as it does on the Delta Reserve card. Then you get a ride share credit. As again, I'm going to figure that at about $60. And here's the thing. You also get a companion certificate with the Platinum card for the $350 annual fee. And that is worth, I mean, if you know what Delta flights cost, you know this. That's worth like $400 or $450. So when you add all of that together, this card with the $350 annual fee is really rewarding. In fact, that stuff comes out to like $780 in value, which means over the $350, they pay you back like $430 to keep it. And I mean, overall, it's a good card. It's got other benefits if you fly Delta. Now that, of course, is a question on anybody. If you never fly Delta, either of these cards are terrible. But if you fly Delta, wow, $430 a year. I think this card, and if there was a S plus tier, I'd put it even above the Reserve. But this card is for sure. If the Reserve card's an S card, the Platinum card is definitely an S tier credit card. Now, the last one in the Delta lineup that we have to consider is we look at the Delta Gold card. Now, the Delta Gold card does give a hotel credit, and it also gives a benefit. If you go and spend a certain amount on the card, you're going to get a flight credit on Delta. So you got to spend $10,000 on the card, and you get a $200 flight credit on Delta, and you get that hotel's Delta Stays credit of $100. So that's potentially $300 on a $150 annual fee credit card. So that's pretty positive, $150 in benefit. But you have to spend $10,000 on the card to get that Delta flight credit or that Delta cash, $200 towards a flight. So how would we rank this? Well, the card also, of course, gives free bags, and it gives some priority boarding and all of that. So I think it just is a flat C tier card. It just goes right where it should, according to the rubric we're using in looking at these different cards. It's a C tier card. Now we look at the American Express hotel cards. And on this list, I have 2 cards from Hilton and 1 card from Marriott. Now, the first one from Marriott is the Marriott Brilliant card, the Bonvoy Brilliant card. It's their big boy $650 annual fee card. And this card gives a $300 dining credit that's doled out in $25 a month, but it's super easy to use, any restaurant. So I think that's a good credit. Now, you still got $350 more to contend with, but it gives a free annual night certificate, different than what we talked about with the Chase Marriott card, because this one's up to an $85K night. And that is a really, really high-end Marriott night. So what is that worth? Well, I think we have to figure that at worth about the same as the Hilton free nights at about maybe $600. So we're looking at a card that, if you like to stay in Marriott's and you're going to use that free night certificate at a really good property, especially you can top it up with some points and go to some fantastic properties. Well, this is a pretty decent card that by this estimation gives you back like over $300 in rewards or in benefit over what the annual fee is. Now, I don't have this card. I'm not a Marriott person. I do have the other Marriott card, and we stay there at least once a year to use the certificate, but I'm a Hilton guy. But if I'm honest with this and I compare it, even though it's not a card that I want, I think for a person who likes Marriott, because the card also gives, it gives platinum status with Marriott, which is really a good status that gets you upgrades, a good percentage of the time. I think we just have to say this is an A-tier card. The Marriott Bonvoy Brilliant, from the perspective of what does it give you back for your annual fee, it's an A-tier card. Now, when it comes to Hilton, we have 2. We have the Surpass and we have the Aspire. Now, the Surpass is their less expensive version, $150 annual fee. Now, for that, these cards are really kind of amazing as far as what they give you back. It gives you a $200 Hilton credit. Now it's doled out in $50 a quarter, so you got to be a spreadsheet guy and keep track of it to get it. But still, it costs $150. They give you back $200 just right there. But that's not the superpower of the card. This card has the ability, if you spend $15,000 on the card, it gives you a free Hilton night certificate. And Hilton night certificates are good at Waldorf Astorias, at Conrad's, the Maldives, whatever. If you can find standard award availability, those rooms are worth, in my view, we always get at least $600 in value out of them. So you've got a card here, only costs $150. It's giving you back $200, and then it's giving you a free night certificate that's worth, in my estimation, at least $600. That's $800 for $150. That means it is really, really giving you outsized value for what you pay. And I really struggled where to put this card, because to me, that seems like that's an S tier card for sure. But, we put those Delta cards in the S tier, and it's like right on the line for me, because I want to put it there. I think it's a great card. I have the Hilton Business, and they just took away that ability to get those free nights with that. And I'm so disappointed, because I love it. I'm doing that. But yet there is still that requirement that you got to spend $15,000 to get it. So because of that, I'm going to etch this Surpass card right down to the A tier. It's an outstanding card, great card for a strategy, but just not quite, just because they make you spend to get that certificate and spend, 15 grand is a significant amount. I've got to put it in the A tier. Now that brings us to its big brother though, the Hilton Aspire. Now I'm just going to tell you outright, I have the Hilton Aspire. I plan to have my wife get the Hilton Aspire. If I can find a way to get another Hilton Aspire, I will. It is, I think, if I were to have to rank all my cards, it's my number one favorite, most valuable card. And so you know where it's going to go, but I'll tell you why. The Hilton Aspire is just a beast. It has a $550 annual fee, but it gives a $400 Hilton Resort credit. Now, it takes a little effort to use that because it doesn't work at every Hilton property. You got to go to a Hilton resort, but there are a lot of Hilton resorts. And if you travel, my wife and I, we do our big vacations, but we sometimes do little 2-night trips, and that's what we use this on. We go and we book a hotel at a resort, and the last one we did, I think it cost like $500 for the 2 nights, and they gave me back $200 of the $500. So it was super easy to get. So it's broken up twice a year. First half of the year, you get $200 resort credit. Second half of the year, you get $200 resort credit. It can be used for your room, or you can charge food to your room, and that'll come off of it. It's difficult in the sense you got to go to a resort, but it's easy once you're at a resort. So they give that $400. In addition to that, they give a $200 airline credit, which is broken up into $50 each quarter, but it's super easy to use. You can buy plane tickets, you can buy almost anything. And if you just don't have the ability to book a plane ticket that quarter, then just put it in the United Travel Bank and you're going to get the $50 back. So that's $200. So those 2 credits, I value at full face value. I'm getting that $600 back, and right there, you're $50 over what your annual fee is. But here's what makes this card amazing, and that is you don't have to have any spending limit to get it. It's just every year you get a free night certificate. And like we said before, under the Surpass, free night certificate with Hilton worth $600+. So that means you get 600 in credits, free night certificate worth 600. That's $1,200 on a $550 annual fee. That means they're putting back, if you use everything, $650 of value in your pocket. Now, you might say, well, that's about what the other card was doing, the Surpass card. Yeah, but this one's better, and I'll tell you why. Because you also get stuff like diamond status, top status with them. You also get stuff like a clear credit. I didn't even figure that in there. And so when you look at all of that, I think that this card is the standard bearer for what an S tier card that pays you money back to keep it is all about. So the Hilton Aspire right up there in the S tier. Now, when it comes to American Express membership rewards earning cards, there's 2 that are on this list, and we're going to close out with these. The first is the American Express Green Card. because although I don't have the green card, I have had it in the past. I don't have it now. I'm not the biggest fan of it. It's not bad. It's not as bad as people act like it is. I mean, it's got really good multipliers, but the card costs $150 annually, and it gives you back some kind of weird things. So first of all, it gives you Lounge Buddy credits. So you can go into lounges of $100, so you can go basically into 2 lounges with that, but you got to book them through Lounge Buddy, so it only works on lounges that will sell you a day pass on Lounge Buddy. So it sounds like $100, but I think it might sometimes be challenging to get that $100 back. Then you have the Clear credit. So if you don't have Clear, and that Clear credit is kind of dependent, whether it's really valuable on if you live in an airport with Clear, if you fly through airports with Clear, if you fly very much at all, there's a lot to that. If you fly at all, if you go anywhere, so that credit's kind of hard to figure. But if you were to get both of those back, $189, $100, that's $289 on $150 annual fee. So when you think about that, where would that fit? Well, $139 back, according to the kind of the grading scale I've used, that'd be in the B tier, but I just can't do it. I mean, I can't leave them that high because the gold, under this criteria of cards that pay you back, I mean, to get paid back, first of all, you got to be able to use that Clear credit. And secondly, you've got to be able to, buy the Lounge Buddy passes, and it's got to fit into your schedule. So I think because of ease of use, I've got to lower this one down, American Express Green Card, to the C tier. I would even argue maybe for D tier. Let me know what you think in the comments. The last one we look at is what you think of as the credit issuing card. I was going to say credit card, but they're all credit cards. But the credit issuing card of all credit cards. And that is the big boy, the American Express Platinum, with a $695 annual fee. Now, I'm not even going to go through every single credit because half the videos on YouTube go through all of that. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff, like there's things like the Equinox credit that nobody's going to use, Soul Cycle. I mean, I don't know anybody who even has one. I didn't even know this existed until I started watching credit card videos about the American Express Platinum. But it does have some more useful credits. It's got the credit for airline incidentals, but with United Travel Bank and some, if you use gift cards for Delta flights, there are ways to get your money back. So that one's pretty much, you can get face value on that. It's got credits for the Fine Hotels and Resorts collection. I think that's $200 a year. That's pretty easy to use and get some value out of, especially since you get an extra $100, for food and or experiences or whatever. When you do that, that's pretty good credit. It's got the $240 a year digital entertainment credit, which if you put things through Hulu, your Disney Plus, and maybe you sign up for HBO Max through that or whatever, I think it's pretty easy to get that $20 a month. So that $240. Saks Fifth Avenue, that one's kind of hard to figure because, I mean, if you live near Saks Fifth Avenue, but how many people in America do? And you don't get free shipping and all of that, and all their stuff's expensive. But okay, it's $100. Then you get, of course, the Clear credit of $189. It's just got a lot of credits. I mean, in addition to those, it's got the Uber credit. That's, a couple $100 a year. So you could use that for Uber Eats and all of that. When you add all that up, you get a pretty big number. And I'm not even figuring everything, the crazy ones like Equinox and Soul Cycle and all that. But when you just add up the ones that are somewhat reasonable for a disciplined person who's going to use a spreadsheet and make sure they get it all every month, you get a pretty good number. It comes out to like $1,089, which is pretty good. Even if you take the Clear credit off, it's still like $900. So when you think the $695, it seems very, very possible to get $200 plus in value in this. Maybe $300, maybe $400. So as much as people like to complain about the American Express Platinum card, and I don't even have that one. I have the business one, but basically my Delta Reserve serves as my American Express Platinum for lounge access. But you see, this card, the Platinum card, gives great lounge access. I mean, the best. Now, it doesn't give guests. That's a pain. But it gives really good lounge access. It also gives you status with different car partners and hotel partners. I mean, it has so many benefits. It's just off the charts. And so where could we put this? Well, I can't put it in the S tier. I just can't do it because You have to go to a lot of effort, but its numbers are definitely S tier. So I'm going to slide it right under there and say that even for a guy who doesn't have this card and is not the biggest fan of this card, the person who's disciplined, who uses it right, it has great potential return. It has great potential to pay you back. So I'm going to have to give the American Express Platinum solid A tier status. So when we think about all of these cards, I don't know which ones work good for you. And I realize this material, this video is really for people who are kind of advanced in the game, who are playing the game hard and are willing to keep track of all this stuff. But if you are, these are all cards that can pay you to have them, even though they have high annual fees. And so I love these kind of cards and I love trying to figure out what kind of value. And, we're not even figuring the value from lounge access. We're not even figuring the value from some of the upgrade abilities of your status with airlines or hotels or whatever it may be. These cards can be extremely rewarding. But the game is, are you going to use the rewards they give you? So the question you have to ask, am I going to or am I not? So I hope this has been a helpful video to you. I am certain some of you out there are going to disagree with where I put some of these things, or maybe there's some cards I missed. I want to know. Please let me know down in the comments. And please mash that like button and subscribe to the channel. That helps me to grow. I appreciate it. See you here next time.